The real fantasy is thoughtful, competent governance.
True.
Books. 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 Books.
Hello and welcome to Didn't Read It, the podcast that wants to be spanked very badly.
Oh, true.
I am your host, Grace Todd, and with me again this week is beloved bestie of the pod, Lee.
Oh, hello.
Hi, baby.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Look at us.
Look at us. Look at us go. And this is our Didn't Read It Valentine's Galentine's Spectacular. Do you have a Valentine?
I do. I do. I feel as though also I have many Valentines, you know?
The podcast is my Valentine.
Yes.
The authors are my Valentines.
Aw.
All of the dead writers. Just me on Valentine's Day, having a seance.
Sexy seance.
Trying to get weird with Mary Shelley from Beyond the Grave.
Sure.
She'd be fun.
I think so.
Susan Glaspell, honestly,
Yeah.
from last week's episode.
She seems cool.
I'm trying to think. Herman Melville would not be a good... He'd be an interesting Valentine. Just a deeply, deeply repressed gay man who liked boats.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, a little nautical.
Yeah.
Get a little ropey.
Nautical.
Do you have big Valentine's plans?
No, I will be working.
Yeah, fair.
Woo.
How romantic.
Very, very.
Nothing like being on the clock. This year, your Valentine is capitalism.
Yes, labor.
The best Valentine of all.
The inescapable Valentine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Don't be sad. It's not the mood today. The mood today is love.
The mood today is love and also lust.
Oh.
And also deep and abiding eroticism.
Oh. Oh, this is an adult Valentine's Day.
It is.
Okay.
And I guess because we do edit the swears out, although our target demographic is not children. I guess I will take a moment here at the beginning of the episode to say that while I am not going to read anything enormously
penetrative,
raunchy.
That's like the definition of it, really.
Yeah.
According to Congress, I guess.
I guess so.
Penetration and
I'm not gonna read anything too graphic, but we are going to be talking sort of at length
about penetration
and in some detail about fun and sex.
Yeah.
So this is maybe not an episode to like put on in the car.
Yeah.
With like a kid in tow.
Don't do that.
Not that you should really do that with any of our episodes.
Yeah.
But you technically could. Like most things would fly over their head. This episode in particular might leave you answering some very complicated questions.
Yeah. This is grown-ups episode.
This is grown-up time.
After bedtime episode. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
This is you time episode.
That's right.
Yeah.
Pour yourself a glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
Light a candle.
Yeah.
Be our Valentine.
Ooh.
I might post this episode early. Post it on Valentine's Day instead of on Sunday. So yeah, come join us for a little you time. A little we time. The way that spikes on the sound monitor. Oh, Lee.
Yeah.
My friend.
Yes. I've had sex. Just so everybody knows.
Yes, you have.
Thank you. On the record.
You've had sex with totally real people
Yeah?
who exist.
Yes.
They go to another high school.
Yeah, you haven't met her.
You wouldn't know her. Have you ever heard of the author A.N. Roquelaire?
No.
Have you ever heard of the author Anne Rice?
Yes.
So.
You wouldn't know her. She goes to another high school. I've heard of her, though. I definitely have. 100%.
So, Anne Rice, what do you know about her? What are you familiar with her for?
I don't know much about her as a person. I've read 2 of her books. Not the most famous one. Not Interview with a Vampire. I've not read that or seen the movie or anything, but everyone else I know likes it. So I'm kind of like it by extension. I'm just like, I trust you guys. What I have read is, I think it's called The 13th Hour.
Okay.
Is that what it's called? Which is like spooky vampire-y with like some sex incidentally. And then I've also read a like porn by her.
Which one?
I don't know. It was like this private island for rich people to go have sex and like kinky stuff. And like the lady who runs all of it fell in love with a guy who was hired to work there as one of like the sex slaves.
Okay.
And then they had a romance. I think. I don't really remember the plot so much.
Well, then you are already on track in that Anne Rice, as we all know, vampires, etc. She also wrote some novels about like the life of Christ. Very long, very successful career.
It's an interesting pivot.
She was actually super
similar to vampires, I guess.
She was super into religion, actually.
Okay.
And toward the end of her life was very much like, I believe in a God and I believe in Jesus. I just don't believe in church.
I can kind of see that. I mean, just the one non-porn book that I've read, it was like the intensity of the spirituality of it was like, I guess I'm not surprised to learn that she's religious in some way.
Yeah. Well, and I think she was raised in, the Catholic Church too, which.
That tracks.
Yeah. Not that you know anything about that. But in addition to her sort of most famous works, she also wrote, as you said, a good bit of out and out erotica.
Yeah.
Pornography.
It wasn't softcore.
No. And she did this originally, and I think mostly, if not exclusively, under a series of pen names.
Yeah, the one I read, she had a pen name. I don't remember what it was, but
She had a couple, and it was because what she says is that when she started out writing erotica, she didn't want her dad to find it.
Okay.
She was like, I don't want my dad to read my porn books.
Yeah, relatable.
And also she said that she thought the pen name would give her a certain amount of, not just freedom, but like would allow her to take more liberties, right? She'd be able to express herself more fully and dive into these fantasies more deeply.
That makes sense.
And so under the pseudonym A.N. Roquelaire, she wrote 4 books that are a riff on the fairy tale of Sleeping Beauty.
Oh.
Have you heard of these?
No, but my mind is immediately like thinking of how to turn Sleeping Beauty into a porn, and it's really easy.
It's so easy.
I'm like, it's basically there already.
So in the 80s, she wrote a trilogy called The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty, Beauty's Punishment, and Beauty's...
Give me that booty. Sleeping Beauty returns. Sleeping Big Booty.
Booty Beauty 2. Spanking Boogaloo.
Sleeping Beauty, more like spanking booty, am I right?
That is actually a very succinct
summary of the whole trilogy.
All of them. And then the last one of the original trilogy is called Beauty's Release.
Mm.
And then, and this is why she's a queen, after 50 Shades of Grey became a thing.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that in a minute. But after 50 Shades
will.
of Grey became extremely popular, became the sort of cultural juggernaut that it was.
Yeah.
For better or for worse.
Yeah.
For worse.
Jugs or not.
Jugs or not.
Yeah.
And it's very funny because I read several interviews with her, and nowhere does she cop to this being her motivation. But I believe absolutely in my heart of hearts that someone like gave her a copy of 50 Shades of Grey and she pulled the like, that's not a knife, this is a knife, and was like, you want a BDSM book? Bitch!
She's like, this will not stand.
And she wrote a 4th book.
Hell yeah.
For the Beauty series.
Hell yeah.
Called Beauty's Kingdom.
Yeah.
And I find it really interesting, and that's going to be the one we talk about most today, because when she wrote the original trilogy, she was much younger, and by her own admission, she writes about this in the introduction to the first book, which was clearly added on later. She was sort of wading into like uncharted territory. There really wasn't much in the way of overt pornography aimed at women.
Really? I guess I don't really know much about like the history of the romance genre.
There were romance novels, lots of them.
Yeah, I guess by romance I mean like literatica, like sex, not just like wooing and kissing, like sex.
So a lot of them, one of the things that
Sorry.
So one of the things she writes about in the introduction for The Claiming of Sleeping Beauty is basically that there were romance novels, and each romance novel would have like a couple of hot and heavy pages. And the sort of open secret was that you would like bookmark the like 3 really good hot scenes you would get per book.
Yeah.
And kind of flip to them sheepishly.
Yeah.
And she was like, what if a book for women that was just all those pages?
Yeah.
Just nothing but those pages.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I think she had an understanding of the market that the market didn't want to have of itself, in a way. And she especially had an understanding of what women wanted that publishing houses were not willing to admit women wanted.
You might say she's found a big, juicy gap and she decided to fill it.
You could say that, yeah.
One could.
So in the introduction, when she's writing about why, because the funniest thing is the original trilogy, despite being, I don't know, moderately controversial, was a massive success.
Love that.
It became a cult classic. People were like trading them around.
Yeah.
They were hugely successful, and they basically like stayed selling. They never stopped selling.
Yeah.
And then 50 Shades of Grey happened, and they jumped through the roof again. And
That's funny.
She says, so there's a section in the introduction where she's saying, you know, why do we think that these books have been so popular? And she says 2 reasons. First, I think it is because they involve no harsh, garish violence at all. They involve game playing, really. No one is burned or cut or hurt. Certainly no one is killed. Indeed, the whole sadomasochistic predicament is presented as a glorified game, played out in luxurious rooms and with very attractive people, and involving very attractive slaves. And then she goes on to say...
Slaves?
Oh, yeah, hang on.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Okay.
And then she says, unfortunately, a lot of hackwork pornography is written by those who don't share the fantasy.
Exactly.
And they slip into hideous violence and ugliness, thinking the market wants all that, when the market never really did. Second, this is shamelessly erotic. It pulls no punches at being what it is. It's excessive, and it is erotica. Before these books, a lot of women read what were called women's romances, where they had to mark the few hot pages in the book. I said, well, look, try this. Maybe this is what you really want. And you don't have to mark the hot pages, because every page is hot.
Yeah.
Every page is about sexual fulfillment. Every page is meant to give you pleasure. There are no boring parts. Yet it's very romantic. And, well, I think this worked.
She's saying, here, I'm giving you the clitoris of literature.
Cliterature, if you will.
It's only Purpose is for pleasure.
And so, you know, she's got the original trilogy, and they do have some, like, there's some objectively, like, pretty problematic shit in the first three.
Sure.
Stuff that, like, really is just kind of her either wading into things she didn't understand as well as she thought she did.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I think there's a bunch of stuff, especially in the original trilogy, that are callbacks to much older erotic literature.
Oh, cool.
And some of it's very charming. Some of it wades into, like, Orientalism.
Yeah.
And there's a whole thing in the third book where they are kidnapped to the kingdom of a sheik. Like, it's a
yeah.
But like I said, I think the fourth one is the most interesting because when she wrote the first one, she was, like, in her 20s, I think.
Okay.
And she came back and wrote the fourth one much later in life.
Much later.
As a, you know, a grown-ass woman who had lived a much longer life.
Yeah.
And had the chance to kind of reboot her own little franchise world.
Yeah.
And I think the changes that she made are really interesting.
Okay.
And so today we're just going to kind of take, again, because I am not going to read... I will not be reading you pornography. And if that's what you're here for, I don't know. We'll start doing bonus episodes at some point.
Oh. That's a pretty good idea, honestly.
And I will read you some historic
The
smut.
Patreon is OnlyFans.
Patreon fans. Patreon fans. I will read pornography. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not going to be doing a bunch of direct reading. We're just going to kind of talk through and around
Summarize
the series.
Yeah. We're going to reenact it. Live on Patreon now.
And so, yeah, I'm going to, you know, usually I feel like I'm kind of like taking the guest's hand and we're like walking through the book.
Yeah.
I think this time we're like in a boat. We're in a sexy boat. And we're going down like a Disney ride.
The Tunnel of Love.
And the book is happening on either side of us, but
okay.
it's going by much more quickly.
Okay. You're just like, wait, what are those people doing?
Yeah, exactly. It's a nude world after all. So,
I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready.
Let's talk about the Kingdom of Sleeping Beauty.
Okay, that's the fourth one.
That's
that's all of them.
Beauty's Kingdom is the fourth book.
Okay,
but we're going to talk about the world.
The world.
We'll start by talking about the world in which all of this happens.
Okay.
So the first book opens with Sleeping Beauty being awakened by the prince. And he immediately fucks her, just right off the bat.
Okay.
Like, we just jump straight to sex.
Sure.
She is not fully conscious yet.
Is she into it?
Yeah. So, one of the things about these books, the first three, the original trilogy, is it is very much a non-consensual fantasy.
Anne Rice was very into that.
Yes. I think a lot of people are into that.
They are. I just noted, having only read 2 of her books, like the non-consensual fantasy featured heavily in both of them, and I was just like, that is this lady's thing. And I'm not knocking it, I'm not judging it. I was just like, I get it, girl.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's interesting because the non-consensual fantasy, I think, is like one of the most enduring tropes of both erotica and romance for women, especially and explicitly aimed at like cisgendered straight women.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just, you know, fantasy and kink and everything is a safe place to work out fears and, you know, like a control, like doing something that in the greater world maybe you don't have control of, but in a controlled, safe environment, you know, exploring that.
Yeah, very much so. And I think when you take the series as a whole, it's kind of like it's like a sexual coming of age narrative.
Yeah.
You are inducted into this thing that you don't understand enough to consent to, certainly, but are nevertheless titillated by, thrilled by, drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's very much kind of the tack we are taking here.
Okay.
So Sleeping Beauty is awakened with an
Wiener.
earth-shattering orgasm.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Congratulations.
So at least she gets that out of it.
Yeah.
Again, this is non-consensual fantasy, and so I don't have to say it a million times. I'm just saying it one more time. That's the world we're in.
Yeah.
I didn't write it.
Yeah.
And after they have had some lovely sex, the prince outlines to her that he is going to take her with him back to his kingdom. Because now that he has broken the curse and everyone is awake, he is taking his rightful tribute. Which is her.
Right.
Because we find out that...
I'm just going to suspend commentary. I'm just like, it's a fantasy. Yeah, get into it.
So in this kingdom, in this version, we are in a version of kind of like... it feels sort of Enlightenment era, maybe just shy, like Renaissance to Enlightenment era Europe.
All right.
We are in a like fantasy version of that.
Okay.
I think it feels like we're meant to be in like maybe France. That part is not made clear.
Maybe.
It's interesting because especially in the fourth book, real countries start popping up. Someone's like, I'm from India. And you're like, wait.
You're like, huh?
Like someone's from Russia and you're like, wait,
Russia?
Which of these countries? Like we've got real countries and fake. Doesn't matter. The point is, we are in a system of feudal governance, and Bella Valentine is a very powerful kingdom that has tributes from all of the surrounding kingdoms.
Yes.
In the form of their
daughters.
No.
Oh.
Of their princes and princesses.
Oh, both of them.
Who are sent to Bella Valentine for a finite period.
All right.
Of sexual slavery.
Yeah. There it is. That's the Anne Rice I know.
Which makes them better rulers in the long run.
Sure.
Because they learn self-control and humility. And then after the finite period, they're sent home to their kingdoms where they then are better kings and queens.
Sure.
Because they've learned all of these lessons.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Got it.
And so Beauty is awakened by the prince.
Mm-hmm.
And then she is stripped naked.
Mm.
And then she is taken to Bella Valentine to begin her years of sexy, nude slavery.
Mm. The best kind of slavery.
It is very spanking heavy.
Yeah.
There is one thing to know. If you are into spanking and the non-consensual fantasy element does not bother you, this is the series for you.
Yeah.
It is approximately 85% spanking.
All right.
Just so much spanking.
So, yep. Yeah.
So much spanking.
Yeah. Slap it.
So Beauty is whisked away to the kingdom of Bella Valentine, and the way that things work in Bella Valentine.
Tell me.
Because again, and I will say, this is one of the things that I actually really like about this series, and that I think Anne Rice made a very good decision, which is it is so clearly a fantasy in terms of the way that she sort of set dresses it, right? Like,
okay.
I think one of the things that makes this series work is it's not one man doing this sort of, rape play with one woman behind closed doors. This is an entire gilded kingdom.
Yeah.
Where this is all very normal.
Uh-huh.
This is just how it works.
Yeah.
I think taking this kind of fantasy and putting it into a sort of fantasy kingdom, like, there are no children anywhere. Nobody poops. Right? Like,
birth control on point.
There is no mention of birth control, and people are having come inside of them constantly.
Yeah.
Nobody gets pregnant. Like, it could not more emphatically be like, this is not real.
Yeah. And they all smelled great.
Yes, everyone smells amazing at all times.
I always think about that with really old literature. I'm just like, I bet you didn't smell good.
Well, the good news I have for you is that all of the lovely little pleasure playthings of Bella Valentine are each assigned their own individual groom who cleans them and bathes them and massages nice oils into them.
Mm-hmm.
And
do they have sex with him?
Anyone can f you basically at any time in Bella Valentine.
Okay.
So the other thing is, like, this is all highly ritualized.
Yeah.
You are being trained like a sexy little dog.
I saw you pause. You're like, is this what I want to say? Yeah, sure.
There is pony play. There is puppy play.
Yeah.
People are being dangled from walls sensually. There's lots of whipping. There's lots of spanking. There's a bridle path where you put on, like, boots that have horseshoes on them and you clip-clop down the bridle path. And the whole thing is, like, the effect of it, especially the first 3 books, is it's overwhelming. Like, it's just, it is, the sensation of reading it is to be almost overstimulated at all times. Like, you do not pass a single page without somebody groping your genitals.
Yeah. And that makes you a better king.
Yes. I mean, look.
Sure. What do I know? I don't know. It could.
But the other important thing to remember about the original trilogy that carries through into the final book is this is not patriarchal.
Okay.
This is equal opportunity. Everyone is having sex with everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone is being admired by everyone. One of the central fantasies of this kingdom is that, like, everyone is beautiful and everyone is desirable. And there is absolutely no attention paid to men preferring women or women preferring men or women preferring women or men preferring men. It's just everyone is so beautiful and so horny.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah.
And so it is like an even 50-50 split of male little playthings and female little playthings and the, you know, the strict masters and mistresses.
Yeah.
And very importantly, the queen of Bella Valentine.
Oh.
The cold, cruel, distant, harsh task mistress of queen.
Yes.
That everyone is
Mommy.
desperate
to please.
to please.
Mommy, sorry. Mommy. Sorry, Mommy.
Yeah, okay. Very much that.
Very that, yeah.
And then the other really interesting thing about the original trilogy, so, like, it just kind of goes from there, right? Beauty is, of course, she's the prettiest and most exciting slave.
Oh, of course.
Because there's a fairy tale. Everyone's like, did she really sleep for 100 years? And they're like,
I don't care.
But, like, it's very preoccupied with the psychology of it all. And so you spend so much of the book, there are multiple characters, and as Beauty kind of moves through this world, you meet all of these different princes and princesses who have been sent to this kingdom to be hot little playthings. And they all have different reactions to submission and to dominance. And like, some of them naturally really thrive on it. Some of them don't. Some of them come around to it, like, but they all have different sort of psychological reactions to the sensation of, like, giving up all control.
Yeah.
And because she dives so deeply into, like, their different characters and how they all react to it, one of the things I couldn't stop thinking about rereading mostly the first book, I didn't have a ton of time, is, like, the thing that separates the kingdom of Bella Valentine from being in an actual feudal state, or for example, serving in the military, is like clothes.
Okay.
In that, what I mean is like, because it's so psychology focused, there's a lot of attention paid to like, you belong to the kingdom.
Yeah.
Right? You are not your own person. You do not get to make your own decisions. And there's a sort of deliciousness in leaning back into that and knowing that nothing bad will happen to you.
Yeah. Truly a fantasy.
Well, that's so like one of the things that got me thinking about is like, a lot of people are in situations where they do not own themselves anymore in pretty real and frightening ways. And I think when you spend your life knowing that substantial parts of your life are contingent on the decisions of others who may or may not give a single f about you and your physical well-being, I can understand why but what if the people who had power over you and were taking away your capacity to make your own decisions just wanted to like pamper you and give you baths and orgasms?
Yeah, like, you know, and kind of, I guess the baseline is like, what if they didn't just want the bare minimum of like not having your best interests at heart, but they also like wanted you to feel pleasure and like, you know, like,
yeah, like, what if the boundaries of your exploitation were extremely rigidly maintained and also like titillating and kind of sexy?
Yeah.
Instead of an unfulfillable maw that you can just fall into forever.
Yeah.
So like I yeah.
Yeah, what if like the powers that be weren't just like eating you up and chewing you? Wait, hold on. What? What if the powers that be aren't just like chewing you up and spitting you out for like whatever profit and use they can get out of you? Like, what if they actually see it as their duty to take care of you in a way?
Yeah, and then also give you some nice spankings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't forget the spankings.
And especially by the fourth book, and I wrote this in the book when I was getting ready for the episode, is the real fantasy is thoughtful, competent governance.
True.
So beauty makes it, you know,
I'm like, I am kind of thinking through, I'm like, what is the plot? Once she gets there, what then?
So the plot, again, it's sort of a coming of age narrative.
Okay.
Like she's learning, right? She's working her way through this world, and
she's learning how to govern.
So this is kind of, because she discovers that she quite likes being dominated. She likes being spanked. She likes pleasing her masters and mistresses. And she also discovers that the prince sucks.
Oh, wow.
We get rid of the prince pretty quickly.
Good.
He is, and again, because this is erotica, the plot is, there's not a ton of plot.
Yeah.
But the prince is like too jealous of her, too controlling. And so she contrives to get herself sent out of the castle and down to the village, which is a whole other kind of servitude, which is raunchier and harsher, but to her, sexier.
Yeah.
And then, again, like I said, in the second book, they're in the village. In the third book, they are in the Sultan's kingdom.
Right.
And through all of this, she winds up meeting the actual prince of her heart, Laurent. And he, at the very end of the third book, they're both released. Neither of them wants to go, which is apparently very common. A lot of princes and princesses, when their family come to collect them, are like, no, no, I don't want to do things. I want to be naked and cosseted forever, like a house pet,
and like told what to do and have my decisions made for me.
I mean,
no, I get it. Yeah.
And Laurent comes and retrieves her, and they get married, and she goes off to be his queen, and they all live happily ever after, until someone writes 50 Shades of Grey, and they all have to be hauled back out.
They're like, all right.
And that is where we come into Beauty's Kingdom, the fourth book.
The fourth book.
And I think the most interesting book.
Okay.
And I have a theory that it is, in no small part, something of a direct refutation of 50 Shades of Grey.
Okay.
And now this is where I'm going to bring up the minor homework assignment that I gave you.
Yes, you did.
Would you like to tell the audience what that was?
You made me watch 50 Shades of Grey. And I did it.
And you were so enthusiastic about it, too.
I can't lie to you, Grace. I was not. I can't lie to the good people of this podcast.
We were sitting there and I was like, man, you know, if you'd be willing to do it, there's like a little bit of homework you could do that I think would like really help the episode. And you were like, anything for you, babe. And I was like, can you watch 50 Shades of Grey? And you were like, no.
I'm not gonna lie. I almost didn't do it. I was like, don't be an asshole. Just watch it. It's fine. It's a movie.
All right. I have never read or watched 50 Shades of Grey.
What the
And I didn't want to, for this episode, because I didn't want it to influence my note-taking and like reactions to the book.
Yeah.
And because I only have so much time.
That's true. That's true.
So my question for you, like, can you run us through in like a very densely, not even like the plot necessarily, but can you run us through sort of the BDSM-iness of it all in 50 Shades of Grey?
I think so. It's okay. So it's like this young girl goes to interview this big powerful. He's a billionaire. First of all, ew.
Gross.
Yeah. And he's very young and like very sexy, and she goes to like interview him. And she's still in college. He's a billionaire.
And she's a college
and
student.
she's in college.
Cool.
She might be a master's program. That was not clear. Anyway, and he like takes a liking to her and like keeps in touch with her. And then he asks her basically to agree to this contract where she comes to his penthouse on weekends and is just like his sex slave, like his for like every weekend. And it's like this whole real big deal about the contract, and you got to sign the contract. And she never does sign the contract. And he's like not a romantic, like this is just what he's into. But then he like romances her the whole time. The BDSM part of it is just like he's got like a sex room. They do sex in there. I don't know. Like it's not. How do I? What's confusing is that it starts out seeming like there's gonna be clear boundaries because they're talking so much about the contract and like what are you willing to do, what are you not willing to do. Like you can say no at any point, you can leave at any point. And it's like, oh, they're really like focusing on consent in this. This is great. They're really like laying out the boundaries and communicating well beforehand. And then just everything. I guess this is probably where the fucking name comes from. Everything gets all. The lines become blurry and gets all gray and like they're kind of falling in love, but he doesn't fall in love. And then it's like it gets worse and like not. And the central conflict, like the climax of the movie was her asking him like, don't hold back. Like, what do you really want? Do what you really want to me. I need to see who you really are. And so he like spanks her hard 6 times. And then afterwards, she's with a whip, and then with a belt. And then afterwards, she's like, I can't believe you did that. And he's like, can you still love me? And she's like, no. And I was like, wait, but. And then the movie ends, and then it's over. And I just don't. I don't understand. No, I can't explain it because I don't understand. I didn't understand it. It was very confusing.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, that was perfect because I, like it or not, 50 Shades of Grey spawned a trend that we are still living through.
Yeah.
In terms of like romance, fantasy, romantasy, which is a portmanteau I do not care for, but it's what we're using now. That is very much a marriage of one classic romance novel plot, which is the sort of brooding male lead. You never really know if he loves you or not.
Yeah.
And the tension comes from kind of drawing out this like emotional conflict. And it's been increasingly kind of overlaid with this more erotica element of bondage and dominance and submission. And one of the sort of fundamental confusions that this fosters is the whole point of BDSM, and especially of like role play heavy dominance and submission, is that you are supposed to feel safe at all times.
Yeah.
You should not be spending your time getting dominated emotionally and physically by someone that you're like, does he like me though?
Yeah.
I know that non-consensual fantasies are like not everyone's cup of tea, but one of the things about these books is that all of the playthings, which is the term I'm going to keep using because I think
that's
slaves.
That's probably better than slaves, yeah.
All of the playthings in this kingdom are constantly being told how much they're loved. Like everyone is just smitten with everyone at all times.
Yeah.
Even when they're in trouble, even when they're being scolded and spanked and put on the turntable in the village square and they're pulling carts and they have little horse tail anal plugs and little bits. All of it. Even when they are in trouble, even when people are disappointed in them, it's very much this like they are loved, they are cosseted, and they are praised, like constantly being like, it's very affirming.
I was thinking that when you were describing it, where it's like the fantasy is that yes, you give up all control, but you are also like the center of attention. You are also adored. You're praised, and it's a very specific fantasy, you know, like
this whole kingdom revolves around all of these naked, beautiful playthings.
The submissives really hold the true power because everybody's obsessed with them and their comfort and safety is the top priority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This brings us into Beauty's Kingdom.
Okay.
So what kicks off the plot of Beauty's Kingdom is that the old queen and the prince who originally yoinked Beauty out of they both die.
Oh.
Off screen. Just
Fine,
they're
sure.
lost at sea. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And we find out that the kingdom of Bella Valentine has been
Wait, the Ice Queen?
Yes.
Mommy?
Yeah, Mommy.
Oh, she dies.
Mommy and Prince Charming die.
Okay.
Immediately.
Got it.
That is how the novel opens.
Okay.
They are, like I said, they are lost at sea.
Yeah.
And we find out that the kingdom of Bella Valentine has been in decline.
Aw.
For quite
You mean they weren't getting any governance done? They weren't tending to their economic...
Actually, no, that's not the problem.
Oh, okay.
The problem is that the queen had lost interest in this elaborate sort of ritual and structure of pleasure slavery, which is what they do call it in the books.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of the whole system is starting to kind of wither on the vine.
Yeah.
And this is a problem. And this is a problem because, and Anne Rice outlines this very, very emphatically, the other thing about an elaborate system of dominance and submission is that everyone must have complete faith in the system at all times for it to work, because you cannot relax into this kind of elaborate ritualistic pleasure play if you aren't absolutely confident that you are doing the right thing, basically. You know?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, we find out that Beauty and Laurent, after governing for 20 some odd years, have handed over their kingdom to their adult son, and they have gone to retire by the seaside in a beautiful castle, and they are bored as
yeah. Yeah, well.
And it was the one time in this book where I was like, yes, this was written by a woman later in life.
Yeah.
Like, there's all of these passages at the beginning where it's just like, they had everything they could ever want, and they still had a wonderful sex life, and they were also just bouncing off the walls with sheer boredom.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yep.
We see you, Anne.
So an envoy comes from Bella Valentine.
Thank God.
to beg Beauty and Laurent to come be the new king and queen of Valentine. Because they know that if anyone can bring the kingdom not just back to its former glory, but beyond its former glory, it would be the two of them, because they are so beautiful.
They're so horny.
And they're so horny.
Yeah.
And also because they both served, because they were naked playthings.
Yeah.
So who better than they to understand this system like inside and out, and how they can like make it better.
Yeah.
And they accept. And they go back, and Beauty and Laurent make all of these like big sweeping changes to the kingdom. The first of which is consent.
Oh.
You have to volunteer to be a pleasure slave in Valentine. Now, and I think this is an interesting kind of threading of the needle, because it gives you sort of the non-con thrills without the non-con chills, shall we say.
Very important.
Which is, anyone can sort of offer themselves up as tribute. And everything is explained to them very clearly. And then they do actually sign a contract.
Yeah.
And once you have signed that contract, you are in it to win it, baby.
Yeah.
You have made a commitment, and you have 6 months to prove that you are capable.
Get the right stuff.
And if you make it past that 6 months, then you do it for 2 years, and then you're done.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So it's, I think it splits the difference pretty nicely.
Sure.
In terms of a fantasy.
Yeah.
The other thing is, anyone can now volunteer of any age.
No.
You don't have to be royalty. You don't have to be from the court.
So open-minded.
I know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So progressive.
So progressive.
Yes.
And there's lots of other like very fiddly bits about the way that they change this world to make it more
woke.
Well, to make it more nuanced. And one of the, like, there's a big subplot about one of the members of the nobility who for his entire life has wanted nothing more than to be a submissive, but was not allowed to because it wasn't considered appropriate.
Okay.
And he finally gets to like go become a submissive, and he's thrilled but terrified, and like it gets into all of the like nitty-gritty of like people I knew before are going to see me naked crawling around on the floor putting golden balls into my anus.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's emotionally complicated for me.
Sure.
And they're like, yeah, I bet it is.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah, friend. And so the final book, it's almost kind of like a collection of short stories in a way.
Okay.
It's from a bunch of different people's perspectives, and it kind of cycles through. And so you get some people who are like very dominant, some people who are very submissive, some people who are switch, some people who are still trying to figure out how they feel about all of this. And because it's Anne Rice and because she's a very talented writer, it's plotty. It's plottier than the first three for sure. And it delves much more into the complications of like what others expect of you. And like one of the, like Beauty has come back to this kingdom, and she has always been really into being a submissive essentially, but she can't now because she's the queen.
This was going to be my question, is like, how does she and Laurent adjust? Like, they love being subs so much. How do they adjust to like having to give up the spotlight?
Well, and that's one of the things that is, I think, really well done, is the first realization that Laurent has is that Beauty's gonna fuck other people.
He wasn't ready for that?
Well, they've been married for 20 years, right?
Yeah.
They left the beautiful pleasure kingdom.
Yeah.
And they went out to a normal kingdom. So they've been living as like monogamous. Well,
I was like, have they?
Well, so what Anne Rice specifically addresses is basically like they have been living a what counts as like a normal quote unquote monogamous marriage
yeah
for the sort of time and place.
Yeah.
So he has definitively had sex with other women, especially when he was like away at war and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And Beauty is like, I have been faithful to you for our entire marriage.
Mm-hmm.
I have never concerned myself with the things that you have, with your sport when you're not around me, and you've never taken like a proper mistress or anything, and you've always, loved me, and like we've had a good life.
Mm-hmm.
But if we do this, I'm
gonna be
yeah, well, yeah. And so there's a whole plot arc where like Laurent is like, oh yeah, that is how this works, and it's only fair. And like at first he's fine with other people having sex with her, but he's not okay with other people dominating her, and he has to like work through this, and she has to work through the sort of pressure of being a queen and needing to be this kind of figurehead that everyone admires and fears and relies on, but deep down what she really wants is to be dominated. And it's a lovely little journey, honestly.
Yeah, very interesting.
It's still horny as
well, yeah. I trust that.
There is an 11th hour plot twist where there's a potion that makes men grow breasts.
Ooh.
It's
interessante.
It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
I think Anne Rice was attempting to nod at some like kind of sideways trans representation.
Yeah.
There's also a very brief, too brief, I was disappointed subplot with a series of grooms who were
unionizing.
I honestly, we needed a fifth book.
Bella Vista or whatever it is in the industrial age.
It's a group of grooms who were women living as men who were thrown out of the kingdom by the old queen, and Beauty invites them back, but she refers to them by their chosen male names. And so like there's that, and then there's some interesting, she's dipping her toes in the water of being like, gender, interesting,
nice.
It's not perfect,
no,
but it's fun.
Yeah.
And speaking of the economics, there is a whole explanation at the beginning of the novel that amounts to like, this kingdom is sustained by the tourism industry.
Yeah.
Unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Yeah. All of these decadent delights allow them to execute what seems to be kind of a feudal brain drain. Like everybody flocks to this one kingdom because it's the horny all the time kingdom.
Yeah.
And as as things get revitalized and it gets more and more elaborate, it does at a certain point start to feel like a kind of feudal, horny, naked theme park.
Yeah, sounds like it.
And I'm not gonna lie, I'd go there.
Sure.
I would go to the horny naked theme park.
Yeah.
I'd spend a long weekend in the horny naked theme park.
Yeah. I'd try it out.
And yeah, I mean, in broad strokes, that is the Sleeping Beauty universe.
Cool.
What do you think? What are your questions?
I don't know. I think it's I got no problems with it. How did the fourth book do?
I'm not sure. I think it did pretty well. People still read these books.
Yeah.
They are very popular. The fourth book is definitely, like I said, it's the plottiest.
Yeah.
If you want just like hardcore pornography on every single page, the original trilogy is going to be what you're after. If the various elements are something that you are into. We spend an equal amount of time in the minds and bodies of men and women.
Yeah.
Lots of anal play across the genders.
Yeah, that happened in the other book I read too. Like there was a equal focus on both.
There's there's some suspension, lots of spanking. I cannot overstate
still with the spanking.
The amount of spanking in all of these books.
Yeah.
It is, if you are interested in more elaborate and hardcore impact play, this might not be for you, because it's really not going to get any spicier than a spanking. That is as painful as it gets.
Yeah.
It's just many spankings.
Yeah.
Yeah. sorry, to channel my former life as a romance novel reviewer for a moment.
Yeah.
Which is how I discovered. So I was assigned to review Beauty's Kingdom when it came out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I was given an advance proof. And
at the time, had you read the first 3?
No, and because I am a completionist, even though I was being paid $25 for each review that I wrote.
Good Lord.
I went and speed read the full trilogy so that I would know, how this related to it.
Yeah.
Before I did my review. But that was, over 10 years ago at this point.
Did you enjoy it back then?
I think so. I remember enjoying it. But the thing about reviewing romance novels for $25 a review, especially when you're doing one a week, is at a certain point you start skipping the sex scenes.
Mm-hmm.
You'll read like the first 1 or 2 to make sure that they're competently written and that no one is referring to their penis as a sword. But once you've checked like one sex scene in a romance novel, you just skim through them at a certain point because that's not really what you're reviewing in a way. I mean, it is, but it isn't.
Yeah.
What is the all happy families are alike? Every unhappy family is unhappy in its own way. It's like all competent sex scenes are kind of alike, but every incompetent sex scene is incompetent in its own way.
Yeah. I never really thought about that. Yeah.
But yeah, no, I reviewed this well. Honestly, it was I remember it being a refreshing change in terms of the quality of the actual prose.
That's what I was thinking, is that it was probably like, oh, a book.
Yeah, like Anne Rice knew how to write. She was good at writing.
Why do you think she made this one plottier than the previous ones?
I think she was a little older. I think it feels like she is gently trying to issue a bit of a corrective.
Yeah.
From the first 3. It feels like there are things that she is trying to kind of retroactively change, like I said. And I think that's fair. People are allowed to evolve and grow. And I think that the fantasies that she was playing with and riffing on in the original trilogy were very much in step with not just the fantasies that were kind of popular in the time period, but were much more authentic to the much older smut and pornography that she was clearly drawing from.
Yeah.
Anne Rice was extremely well read.
I believe it.
It's very obvious that she read old like 17th, 18th century pornography.
Yeah.
And is very much channeling that in the first 3. And in this one, I think she's kind of looking forward. She's trying to be a little more contemporary. And quite honestly, I really do think that she was trying to be like, oh my babies,
oh
my darlings, like, you don't have to settle for 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Like, you can have better.
Yeah.
You can have a fantasy that is not just complete and comprehensive, but like internally logical.
That is the biggest thing. That would be so nice.
You can have a fantasy that not only has internal logic, but that is a safe place for you.
Yeah.
And you can have a non-consensual fantasy that is still very safe and has very clear boundaries and is a world in which you really can let yourself fall into the fantasy without accidentally ingesting something that is quietly kind of harmful.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
And doesn't sound too preachy.
No, and I like that. And I think, probably too is just, even if there wasn't the prompt of, the movie coming out and her being like, all right, we got to show these kids how it's done. You write something and then like 30 years later, like inevitably you've thought about it and you've been like, I would change this, or I would expand on this, or like this is where that would logically go afterwards. And I'm sure probably a lot of the ideas she already had.
Yeah.
Like,
I also think that this was much earlier in her career, and there's really no way she could have known how famous she was going to get.
Yeah, famous.
It's thoroughly possible that her younger, more naive self thought that no one would ever know.
Yeah.
That she wrote those original novels.
Yeah. That's very true.
She was quite young. She probably was like, yeah, you know, I'll never be so famous that people will relentlessly ferret out everything I've written.
Yeah. Everyone will know my 6 pen names.
Yeah.
Whoopsie daisy.
Whoopsie doodle.
I think that in the one that I read, it was like Anne Rice writing as blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
Yep.
Well, what's the point of a pen name?
That's what the front of all these books say.
Yeah. Anne Rice writing as, what does that say?
Anne Roquelaire. That was her.
And then underneath it in giant letters, the biggest on the entire page is Anne Rice. She's like, cool, thanks.
These editions I have were reissued before she released the 4th one. Originally published in 1983. And these editions, I think, came out in like 2016. Someone licensed the Beauty's Kingdom novels, the Sleeping Beauty novels, for a television adaptation, but it apparently like died in transit. It never happened.
Well, I mean, what channel would that go on?
I think it was...
Because you can't how much you going to water it down?
It was bought, I think, by like the Lifetime network. But I think they have a bunch of different...
Sweeties.
I don't know.
You can't do it respectfully.
It was supposedly...
I'm grateful for the niche that they fill, you know?
I think HBO needs to do it.
It's obviously HBO.
It's gotta be HBO.
And even that's going to be super watered down.
Yes.
Like Lifetime.
Yeah.
Babes.
Yeah, well, it didn't happen, unsurprisingly.
Well, yeah.
Well, I'm going to toss you this book. I want you to flip through it at random and then fan through it, just jab your finger in.
I'm nervous. Here, get the ASMR. Did the sound translate? Okay.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Read us a
How
passage.
How much?
As much as you want.
Okay. I found myself groaning again. I couldn't help it. But to the walloping with the strap, this was like spice compared to supper. To say that my loved it would be an understatement. I saw the whole room in a bright flash. I saw slaves being very roughly bathed, and others soothed, it seemed, and some being smacked over and over by their grooms, in one stage or another of their toilet. I saw some over the knee as I was. He didn't spank me all that long, but my felt like it was made of stone. He brought me up straight. You're a good boy, he said approvingly. A very good boy. I have this feeling, but what do I know? If the queen or the king don't take you, you'll still be at the court, at table or stable.
Oh. All right. I'm going to do one, and then we're going to close out with our little Valentine's Day treat. All right. Let's see. It was the night on which the favorites of the king and queen were run on the bridal path, along with the favorites of the more powerful members of the court. I stood at the door of the bridal path hall, where the glittering chariots were lined up, the various lords and ladies already mounted in them, and ponies stamping their booted feet ready to pull them, and the poor slaves chosen to be runners waited in line as well. Rosalind and Elena were instructing the grooms as they prepared the slaves, adjusting coiffed hair or braided hair, brushing the bushy locks of the boy slaves, and warning each and every one to run fast and hard. There is no escaping the paddle, said Rosalind to the little thing closest to her. And if you pass the royal banquet table without putting on the very best show, you'll find yourselves hung upside down in the gardens for the night.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yay!
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 Any final thoughts on, I don't know, pornography, BDSM, smut?
I support it.
Yeah.
Love it. It's great. I hope, everybody enjoys what they enjoy.
Yeah.
Consent is the sexiest thing.
Yeah.
Adults can be adults.
And I think it's important to, explore different fantasies.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that's really nice about, especially the last book, but really well-written pornography in general, is it gives you a chance to try ideas on for size. In a very safe way, and in a way that I think is less overwhelming than visual pornography.
Yeah.
To kind of explore different fetishes and different partner, just different aspects of sexuality in a way that's much easier to kind of like close and put down and be like, oh, that didn't work for me, or like, oh, like this does work for me, and how does that make me feel? Like, what?
I think like written erotica and written porn are maybe appeal so much to women because they focus because the nature of the media itself means you have to focus on the actual sensation.
Yeah.
And it's not just like shock factor or wow factor or the money shot. Like it's, what does this actually feel like? What's the buildup? What's the sensations? Like what's going on in your mind during it? And I mean, it appeals to me. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really important. And I think it's maybe more important now than ever.
Yes.
Well, with so much censorship on the horizon. And,
yeah, a lot of it.
And, well, until recently, I'd really hoped that they were on the decline. But the sort of like TERFs and like the anti-smut, quote unquote feminist.
The TERFs and SWERFs go hand in hand.
The TERFs and the SWERFs are getting ever more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to pelt them with copies of Anne Rice's pornography.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's really important to have controversial and exploratory and well-written pornography out there.
Yeah.
And I stand behind it. And Anne Rice, in some of the interviews that she gave around when Beauty's Kingdom came out, very much was like, I think that feminism means that women have a right to explore fantasies and even uncomfortable fantasies, and I do not believe in anyone who calls themselves a feminist and advocates for censorship.
Yeah.
And I say that, in her honor, go read some really well-written pornography.
Yeah. And can I also add, listen to sex workers, because no one has a better idea of consent and what keeps adults safe.
Yep.
And, the balance of power and the exchange of energy and the exchange of resources and basic economics than sex workers. And things that affect sex workers, a couple years later, affect all of society, including censorship and technological lockdown and everything. So
yeah, the sex workers have been warning us for years now.
Oh yeah,
that things were coming, and then they happened.
Yeah.
Around to find out.
Truly, we are all finding out. Are we not?
But
thanks, Anne Rice.
Thanks, Anne Rice.
Thanks, Anne.
Happy I hope. How are you doing out there, everyone? Are you enjoying your Valentine's Day spectacular? Do you have a glass of wine?
Yeah.
Because before we wrap this up, we're going to play a little game.
Spanking. No.
We're going to play a very abbreviated version of Plot Me Baby One More Time.
Ooh.
Where Lee and I are each going to pull up our search history. We're going to take the last two things that we Googled.
Oh, no.
And then we are going to plot out an erotica.
A pornography.
A pornography.
Yeah.
Based on our search terms.
Oh, boy.
So. Lee?
Yeah?
Would you like to start us off?
Okay. I got 3 good ones. And 2 of them I'm going to explain.
Okay.
Is that allowed?
Sure. Okay.
The most recent thing I Googled was sucking on a chili dog outside the Tasty Freeze. Which is a John Cougar Mellencamp lyric that I've sung my whole life. And last night I was just like, what does he mean sucking on a chili dog?
Is he sucking the chili off the dog?
And I will say I'm not the only person who's had this question. Another thing is Mardi Gras 2025.
Okay.
Good, that could be a good setting.
All right.
And then another one is, and this is one I really would like to explain, is Recticare, lidocaine, anal numbing cream. light decay. Allow me to explain, please.
No. I'm going to
no.
You can try and explain, but I'm just going to cut it.
Are you going to cut it? It's for
a likely story.
And I'm scared it's going to hurt really bad, so I'm using numbing cream for the first time.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
what about you? What'd you Google, Grace?
Let's see. Okay. NVIDIA server rack.
What is that?
NVIDIA are the chips that they use to do generative AI
Oh,
shit.
no.
Yeah.
Ooh.
And call a cab. Sorry, call a cab.
Oh, the song.
Call a cab.
Call a cab.
The song.
Yeah, good song.
And egg collecting basket.
Yeah.
All right. Those are my three things.
Do we need to write this down? Are you going to remember these?
Well, I can always just check again.
Okay.
All right. Lee?
What?
Would you like to start us off?
The scene is Mardi Gras.
Beautiful.
2025.
All right.
Anne Rice's Mardi Gras. She loved New Orleans. That's true. She was very New Orleans-y.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's where we are.
Are there vampires there?
Yeah.
All right.
Vampires love John Cougar Mellencamp. Jack and Diane is the anthem of Mardi Gras 2025.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great start.
Yeah. Suck down a chili dog.
Where does the eroticism come in?
What was the second? What was the other thing?
The anal numbing cream.
John Cougar Mellencamp is getting by vampires at Mardi Gras. And they are too hard and he has to go get some Recticare. In a sexy way.
Do the vampires apply it? Do the vampires?
It's his aftercare.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do the vampires understand good aftercare?
Yeah, it's like actually very sweet.
They like put him on a massage table and they give him a chili dog while they
and he sucks on it
while they gently numb his
anus, his sore hole.
That's nice.
It is nice, actually. It's very beautiful.
And does he have a good time?
He has a great time.
Like, what kind of a fantasy?
And then they all go to the parade later.
Aw.
Yeah.
How wholesome.
Yeah, and they show their titties.
Oh, I like that.
I do, too.
Okay.
Yeah. Brought it home.
You did it.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. What were mine again? Egg collecting basket.
You got some real rich material to work with here.
Call a cab and NVIDIA. What was it? NVIDIA server rack.
Yeah.
All right.
You got this.
The scene opens. It's the near future.
Mm-hmm.
We're going a little sci-fi.
Ooh.
And our bold heroine is collecting eggs.
Yes, for which she needs an egg collecting basket.
Yes.
Yes.
She has her egg collecting basket and she is going out to her chicken coop, which is very important because we're in a minorly post-apocalyptic near future.
Yeah, not a lot of food.
And in the chicken coop, she finds an outlaw.
Oh.
Hiding.
Oh, no.
And she's like, you can't be here. I'll get in trouble.
Yeah.
Because clearly you're up to no good. And he's like, you have to hide me. And she's like, I shouldn't hide you, but I want to, but I shouldn't.
But I can't.
And he is like, well, if you won't hide me, then I'm taking you hostage. And then they go into the house. But he's not really taking her hostage because he's not good at it. He's not very mean.
Yeah.
He like wants to be meaner than he is.
He is a bottom.
And he tries to tell her that he's not actually a bandit. But the light is very pretty on his face.
Yes.
And she's making him eggs.
Yes.
And he's standing there and their hands brush and they start kissing and then they start undressing each other. And he has an ACAB tattoo on his chest.
Aha.
And the ACAB tattoo is what marks him out as being a bandit.
Yes.
And she's like, no, you are a bandit. And he's like, I'm sorry, I am a bandit and also a bottom. And and they do some hand stuff in the kitchen.
Yeah. Very tasteful.
But they don't cross-contaminate the eggs.
No.
Eggs are expensive.
Yes.
So then they wash up and they eat the eggs, but only after everyone has washed their hands.
The eggs were being hard-boiled, and she puts them in the fridge while they do hand stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then she decides that he's just so beautiful, and also he has a mission he needs to complete, and he's such a tender baby girl that she knows that he'll never complete his mission without her help. And so she throws everything away to follow him, to help him finish his mission. And his mission is blowing up a generative AI server farm.
Yay!
And they break in together and they set it on fire and they explode everything. And then they have sex.
She pegs him on the ashes.
She pegs him in the woods as they watch the server farm burn down in the distance.
Yeah. I think that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. You're too good at this.
Happy Valentine's Day, everyone.
Aww.
Thanks for being my Valentine.
Thanks for being my Valentine. Are you talking to me or the audience?
I'm talking to all of you.
Okay.
I'm talking to you and the audience, and Anne Rice.
I'm included.
And my server farm burning erotica characters.
Yeah.
We're all each other's Valentines.
Yeah.
Especially when we're
burning down the servers.
Violently resisting generative AI.
Yeah.
Yeah.
AI. Happy Valentine's Day.
Happy Valentine's
Yay!
Day! We'll be back next week with our usual
more porn
content. Less porn. No, it's not going to be very porny at all, I'm afraid.
I cannot recommend that.
And just a reminder that if you want to be our Valentine, we have a brand new merch store.
Yeah.
You can find it at didntreaditpod.com.
Yeah.
And the first few orders will get a little handwritten note and some stickers and some bookmarks from me.
I'm going to go buy some right now.
Yay.
Yeah.
That's about it for us here at Didn't Read It.
We got some spanking to go get to.
Honestly, I have been reading hardcore pornography for 3 days straight, and I need to do something about it. So,
goodbye!
Love you all. And as always, if you can, this week, this month, this pay period, consider supporting a living author, pornographer, sex worker, or person in need of spanking.
Yes.
Because they could really use the love.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.
Didn't Read It was created, written, researched, and recorded by me, Grace Todd. Maddie Wood is our co-producer and social media maven. Editing by Tally, a true podcasting professional, and Grace Todd. Our theme song is Books 2.0, written, performed, and recorded by William Albritton. Special thanks to Black Iris Social Club in Richmond, Virginia. Reach out to us with questions, concerns, or academic scrutiny at didntreaditpod@gmail.com.